to the Active Travel Adventures podcast. I'm your host, Kit Parks. I've got a special bonus episode for you today where I've asked Becki of Trailblazer Wellness, my affiliate, and who's helping me get ready for my upcoming fall trip where I'm going to be doing so many different types of adventure travel holidays, from hiking in the Dolomites. I'll be biking in Croatia in the mountains. I will be paddling, hiking, and biking in Slovenia. So I thought it'd be fun to get her on the horn and let you eavesdrop in on our conversation. It won't just be about getting ready for my trip, but there's plenty of general adventure travel training tips that we discuss as well. And I hope you enjoy the program. So let's get started. Selfishly, I've asked Becki Rupp of Trailblazer Wellness to come back on the program because she is not only my affiliate, but also has been helping me to train for my upcoming adventures, hiking in the Dolomites, which is in Italy, biking and paddling in Slovenia. And then the one that most intimidates me is biking the mountains of Croatia. So welcome to the program, Becki. Thanks for coming on.
Sure thing, Kit. Happy to be back.
Recording on the road. So if you hear some background noises, I'm currently sitting under a tree as far away as I can from the road, but every once in a while somebody will come through, so please bear with us. We are trying to get out some information while I'm traveling. I wanted to ask Becki to come on, first of all, just to give us a brief overview, because I'm back in the training mode again. So you've given me a schedule, and I thought it might be fun for people to kind of get a feel for what's involved in training for an adventure. So why exactly is it important for us to train before we do some pretty intensive adventure travel trips?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the importance of pre-trip preparation is really, it depends on kind of where you are now and what you're hoping to be doing on your adventure. So a lot of people, put a lot of time and effort into researching, where they're going to go, which company they're going to go with, what, airlines are they going to fly, what hotels. And, that's all very exciting. And it's fun to look at all the pictures of beautiful places and these are the great things we're going to do and see and all that sort of thing. And then kind of like book everything, and then life goes on. And then the next thing you know, it's like 2 or 3 weeks before your trip. And you're like, oh my goodness, like I haven't been doing anything like what I'm going to be doing on my trip. I wonder how that's going to go. It's easy to overlook it or just kind of set it aside. But if you have not been doing a lot of activity related to or similar to what you're going to be doing on your trip, then it could be a little rough for you. You might not, you might have those beautiful pictures, but they also might be associated with, wow, I took those pictures and then I just like crashed in my room all night and didn't really enjoy the evening time, or I just felt really sore the next day and that sort of thing. So that's why I like to help people get ready and be able to make the most of this like exciting adventure that you have paid a lot of money for, that you've been excited about, that you've maybe told all your friends about. And then you come back and they're like, how was it? You're like, oh, well, it could have been kind of hard. But if you do a little bit of training before, or a lot of training before, depending on what your level is for the trip, then you get all the great memories and the great pictures.
And what I like is you actually gave me a written plan, and I'm good at following a plan. And so I know each week, and I have flexibility within that week of which days to do it. I want to go ask you some more questions about that a little bit later.
Sure.
But I know what I'm supposed to do for the next 12 weeks to make sure my body can do it, because I've been on the back end of what you're talking about where I wasn't prepared, and it's not as much fun. And I got injured, and it's just, it was a great trip, but it would have been so much better if I was Xena the Warrior Princess instead of Kit hobbling along.
Yeah, I'm sorry you had that experience, but it's definitely avoidable, especially if you've planned your trip months and months in advance, like, many of us do. I mean, sometimes there's last minute stuff that comes up, of course, and that's fantastic as well. But if it is something that you've really, it's a dream trip, it's something that you've really been excited to do and you booked months in advance, it's really a good investment of your time to go ahead and start training pretty much as soon as you decide to do the trip, unless it's like a year in advance. That might be a little bit much, but at least anticipate that kind of window for when you can get ready so that it doesn't sneak up on you. Time flies, right?
So like I'm a big hiker and I'm trying to get more into cycling because I think I can see more of the planet if I do bike trips versus the hiking trips I lean towards. If I don't have a lot of time, will my body be able to still do it, or do I need to use different muscles, or how does that work? Can you translate a current fitness ability into another kind of a sport, or what's involved with that, with me being a hiker and all of a sudden trying to be a decent biker in 12 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, definitely with 12 weeks, you can absolutely, if you have a basic foundation of, activity and fitness, 12 weeks is a great amount of time to kind of transition that or to do some different things to adapt to different activities. Again, being generally fit will serve you well no matter what you're trying to do. But like cycling, for example, I even know people who are outstanding road cyclists and struggle with mountain biking and vice versa. So even within cycling, unfortunately, it's not like a direct correlation. Doing some sport specific or activity specific training will absolutely, again, give you that better experience when you're there in person, like doing the thing. So yeah, the foundational level fitness, again, your heart, your muscles. Well, the heart is a muscle, of course, but your lungs, all that, being used to doing activity is fantastic as a starting point. That being said, if you're not particularly active, that could mean, starting even a little bit earlier to build that foundation of activity. It's all eminently doable. And, again, with just taking the time and investing some effort in a particular direction will make the most of your experience.
And I want to reference one of my earlier podcasts, it's been 3 years, where I interviewed a gal by the name of Cindy, who was a total overweight, obese couch potato, who in 7 months, her trainer got her from being the couch potato to summiting Kilimanjaro. So it is doable for any of your adventures. You just got to talk to whoever it is that you're working with, whether it's Becky or somebody else, to figure out how much time you do need to achieve your dream. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, good for her. It takes a lot of work.
A really, really motivational episode. In fact, that's the first one I ever did as a two-parter, because the first one I was just so enthralled with the training part that was just the setup. And then we didn't finally summit Kili until the next episode. If you haven't listened to that, I strongly recommend. It's very motivational. But let's say, like me, I'm doing so much traveling that as much as I'm going to try to do what you've given me to do, if I'm driving all day, I'm just not going to be able to get in a 90-minute bike ride and all that. Can I kind of cram some of my days together, or is that bad? Or how do I do that when I'm just not going to be able to do it lined up the way I'm supposed to?
Sure. Yeah. And for my clients, I put together a guidance, right? And, recommendation. It's not like, if you don't do this, you will never survive. It's nothing like that. It's a goal, it's a recommendation. And if you need to pair things up a certain way, or you ever have any questions, or like, wow, I'm only going to get in 2 rides this week. Should I really try to push to get 3 rides next week, or, whatever, I'm always available for consultation with my clients. But yeah, again, it's more to give you some goals and reference points and try to do the best you can with it. And doing something is better than doing nothing. So if you can, even get out for 1 or 2 rides when you should be, when the recommendation is for 3 or 4, that's still better than not doing anything at all. Does that make sense?
Yep, definitely. And then let's say, like what happened to me with my West Highland Way trip, I hadn't planned on going, did no training. And all of a sudden, like I had a couple of weeks, I was like, I'm in pretty good shape. I did a recent hike. I did fine. Can you kind of accelerate something? Can somebody be like hardcore training for, say, a month and still pull off a reasonable, not something killer, say like a 3.5 to maybe a 4? Can they do that?
Well, it kind of depends, to your point about, what kind of shape you're starting in. If you're the couch potato and you've got a month before you're going to go do 15-mile days hiking or 40-mile days cycling, it could be a little rough. You're going You can definitely, again, same principle, something's better than nothing. You can ramp things up. You can certainly accelerate the training schedule calendar approach. The thing is, and that will help you with, we referenced earlier, injuries. So if you accelerate too quickly, you do have a higher risk of injury. The flip side of that is if you go from nothing to the full trip, you're definitely at risk for an injury. So again, just, get in as much as you can, but I would still sort of moderate it. I wouldn't go like jump off the deep end, even in your training, because you don't want to injure yourself before the trip. So that's where consulting with somebody who really knows what they're doing and who has helped train people for events or particular types of things can be helpful to say, okay, is this too much too quickly, or am I, accelerating this at a reasonable pace to be able to improve my fitness and, ability to do these things without risking, without, there's always a risk of injury, but without minimizing or putting a reasonable amount of caution in there to prevent injury.
All right. Now, I see in my schedule, I'm supposed to, the next few weeks, start adding hills. Unfortunately, I'm going to be in Eastern North Carolina, which is flat as a piece of cardboard. What can I do bike-wise if I can't simulate a hill, is there anything that you can recommend? And see, this is very selfish, basically. I get to get all your free advice.
Of course.
Can I make the gears hard, or are there ways I can compensate?
Yeah, you mentioned like cranking up the gears, just make it harder for your pedal stroke. You can do sprints. So you can do like look down the road and pick out like from like here to the next intersection, I'm going to go as fast as I can. Just to kind of like simulate pushing your heart rate and pushing your effort level so that it doesn't exactly simulate a hill, but between doing sprints or doing, a longer stretch in a harder gear, you're just kind of like challenging your muscles in different ways so that they're used to not just like tooling around at the same rate all the time.
And so if I do something and I'm not just it's a little sore, like I feel like I've exercised, I feel like, how do I know if I'm overdoing it? And then I should either back up, or I'm kind of get what I'm talking about, where, this is too much.
Well, definitely like be mindful. Be mindful when you're doing the exercise, of course. And if your legs are just shot, and you just can't go any further, then stop. Or if you feel any sharp pains, watch the twinges. If it's sharp pain, absolutely stop. If you're sore the next day, but you feel like you can, kind of take it easy and still maybe not get on the bike again, but do some walking and whatever, then you're at a good level. If you like just can't even get up the next day, then unfortunately, sometimes these things aren't clear until a day or two later. And then you're like, oh yeah, that was a little too much. But I would just say, just pace yourself. Try not to just go from 0 to 60. Do your best to moderate and do as much as feels like an effort and feels challenging, but don't feel like you have to go to the point of exhaustion.
Again, going back to my own situation, I'm going to be doing the Dolomites. I'm just going to be hiking for I believe it's 10 days. So I'm not going to be doing any biking. Does that mean I'm going to lose a lot of my conditioning, or is there still some muscle memory I get to pull on? Or
Sure. So if you are, if you've been training for your cycling stuff and then you have a couple of weeks where you're doing some hiking, you just don't have a chance to bike. If you can, great. If you can't, you're not going to lose all your conditioning. I would say 2 weeks, you're going to be a little more sore, especially you're behind once you get back in the saddle. But even if you have a little piece of time in between that and when you're going to be doing the full bike trip, where you can get on a couple of times and just kind of re-engage that muscle memory. But if you've been doing it like, over the course of several weeks, if you've been cycling several times a week over the course of the weeks, your body's going to be pretty used to it. I mean, it won't lose it all by any stretch. And again, you're, hiking in the Dolomites, you're certainly going to be maintaining your level of fitness, and your muscle memory will come back pretty quickly once you get back to cycling again.
And one of my biggest problems with cycling is sitting on the seat for long periods of time. Are there things other than biking that can help build, I don't know if they're butt callus, I don't know what you call it, that you're used to sitting on a saddle for a long time?
Yeah, I mean, the bike saddle is a bike saddle. I honestly, I don't know a trick for that. You just gotta get in a bike saddle. Again, that is where anticipating these kind of breaks or the sequence is really helpful to at least get yourself to the point where you have gotten used to it. Again, it's not all going to go away in 10 days or so. If you've been doing things consistently up till then, you should be fine.
Yeah, my sister Terry took me on a 50-mile Bataan bike ride last fall. The last 10 miles, I had not been biking at all. My legs were fine. I was standing up those last 10 miles. My bottom was so sore. Oh my gosh, that was not pleasant. So that actually scares me a little bit more than everything else. And I'm hoping that will be taken care of with all my training with you.
Okay, I mean, if you're really, really concerned about that, find out what kind of bike saddles they have for the bike you're going to be using on your trip. Because there's a variety of bike saddles, and honestly, like for some people, it is a really big deal. We're also doing a bike and boat trip in Croatia, not the same one, but we'll be literally like ships passing in the night. And one of the people I'm going with, he's like those, he calls them kind of like the tractor chair style seat. He's like, it just kills me. I can't do it. He's going to buy a cheap saddle, like more of a sport type saddle, like he's used to on his bike. And he's just going to buy a used one or something that he can take with and use it on the rides, because that's what he's used to. And he's like, I am just not going to be miserable. I'm going to just take my own little bike seat and pack it in my luggage and leave it there at the end of the trip. If it costs me $40 or whatever to get one, that's, so if you have a particular saddle that you like, you have the option to bring it, or if there's some place that you can get a hold of one there or make arrangements, that's great. If not, I mean, you'll probably survive. It's just a matter of comfort.
Can you wear bike shorts and put a padded bike seat? Or is that overkill?
You can. Different people like different levels of padding. I would say that one of the strategies is to kind of simulate or try to do what you expect there on the on the actual trip. So if you can get a preview of what the bikes look like and what their saddles are like, and that's something that you can try somewhere, if it's not that the same as your bike, just to get a sense of that would be helpful. Some people like a lot of padding in their bike shorts, and some people really don't. So it's what you're used to. And, try it again. That's where it's just kind of that anticipation and practice is best. If you have a favorite pair of bike shorts that really works for you, then try using those with a similar saddle to what you expect and kind of see how it goes.
Now, I won't be able to bring any weights, obviously, on my trip. So can I just use my own body as the weight? So just do the planks, squats, and lunges, and will that be enough?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you can even do things like hold your suitcase or hold your backpack or put your backpack on your back. If you're carrying, I assume if you're hiking in the Dolomites, you're going to have at least a day pack. You can load up your pack or your suitcase and just like hold it and use it as a weight while you do squats or step ups and things like that. So if you want to add a little weight. The idea is primarily just to keep those muscles active and engaged. You're not looking to go win a bodybuilding, competition. Body weight is sufficient for most people to just maintain a basic level of fitness and strength. So for that purposes, once you're kind of on the road and not carrying weights, you can either, like I said, adapt and use what you have handy, or just use body weight, and that'll just kind of keep things engaged and keep them in a, good track.
And what do you do to make sure that we're keeping proper form when we do our exercises?
Honestly, that's kind of up to you. I provide videos and instructions on how to do the exercises. If a client has a question or wants to be sure that they are doing something correctly, I can do a video, Zoom video consult, or have them shoot a video themselves, and I can analyze that and provide feedback. Those are a couple different ways to just kind of check in and make sure things are going right.
Now, what about mental prep? What do we need to do to make sure, because that's half the battle sometimes, particularly in the longer days?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's where doing the physical training can help you gain confidence in that mental aspect. As you see yourself adding more distance, adding more time, and still feeling pretty strong along the way, just reflecting back on what you did, where you were at a few weeks ago and where you're at now can be really helpful. And then some visualization, positive visualization of, hey, of the future, and looking forward to that event and saying, oh, and I did all my training, or did the best I could with my training, and now I'm out on the bike feeling strong, doing it all that I wanted to do. And then when you're on the actual trip itself, the nice thing about these kinds of trips is you're with a group and you can kind of help motivate each other. And I know I find when I'm cheering someone else on, that kind of helps motivate me. So those are a few ideas about how to kind of keep that mental game up to par.
Well, one reason I'm glad I'm using you as a professional on this little cluster of trips is because, a lot of the trips I kind of make up my own plan, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good plan, because I'm not a personal trainer. So having a professional outline and give you a plan, if you work the plan, you're going to be able to accomplish your dreams.
Yeah, there's no guarantees, right? I always like to say, you have a much stronger possibility, and things happen. It's going to improve your experience all the way around. Again, you'll have more confidence, you'll have more stamina. Even if I'm glad the woman reached the peak of Kili. It sounds like that was really amazing. There are 100 reasons why people don't summit Kili. Anything can happen when you're out there, but you'll know that you did the best you could, and you'll enjoy the journey. The journey to where is an important part of the process, and the pride and just the progress and the things that you'll see along the way is a reward for many of my clients in and of itself.
And we had you on last year to talk about altitude training, and I'll make sure to put a link in the show notes about that, because that's another component if you are going up high like Kili. Yeah.
I'm doing a training program right now for a group of women who are going to climb a 14er, which is a 14,000 foot peak here in Colorado. So it's 14,000 foot plus in elevation, and many of them live in Colorado at least. So they already have, at least some altitude, 5,000 a mile high, they're in Denver, and one of them's here where I live at about 8,000 feet, but one of them's in Maryland. And so, we're talking about strategies to just kind of, push her heart rate and push her capabilities so that she will have the best chance possible to manage the the altitude. So yeah, there are definitely some good strategies for preparing for that. Again, no guarantees. The body is a mysterious thing and lots of stuff can happen, but at least if you've tried, you can have some satisfaction in having put forth your best effort.
And one thing I like that you do, Becky, with Trailblazer Wellness, for those of you that have listened to some previous episodes, we're doing a coast to coast Camino in Costa Rica. We're walking from the Caribbean over to the Pacific. And you can do this with your own. Let's say you have a group of friends that are going to do something. You can go to Becky and do what she's doing for us with the Costa Rica trip. It's personal training, plus we're doing it as a group too. So she's going to tailor specifically for our hikers that are going on this trip. We're all going to be training hopefully most of us will be training together. And that's kind of cool. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. So yeah, again, I'm doing it with this group for the 14er. So it's a group program, which is really awesome for giving, kind of the group support and camaraderie and just, sharing experiences and cheering each other on. Some group sessions where we talk about different things related to the goal that we're doing. So for the 14er and probably for the Camino, we'll talk about gear. We had a session about nutrition. We'll have open Q&A sessions where people can just come and share experiences or ask whatever random questions have come up along the way. But then I also do the individual coaching, and that's where, the adaptation takes place for your real life situation, for like you, Kit, in this situation with your cycling kind of coming in the midst of some other things going on. How do we set this up so that you can adapt? Like I said, for people in different environments with different lifestyles, we'll tweak things as we go along the way. If you're doing the recommended plan and you're crushing it and you're like, I did my 6-mile hike this week and I felt great afterwards. I felt like I totally could go longer. Great. Next week, instead of having you do 6.5 miles, we might have you do 7 or 8 miles. And making those adaptations along the way so that you can make the most of your time and do what you need to do. So it's kind of a blend. Yeah.
And if you're not in a group, you can still hire you just to help me with the one thing that I want to do. Or I guess the bottom line is you're flexible. Whatever your client needs, you're going to try to figure out a way to figure out what they need and make a plan for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And all the plans I do are individualized. I don't have a set, here's your 14er training program, because everybody's different. Everybody's lifestyle is different. Everybody's starting point's different. It's not off the shelf because, our lives aren't off the shelf. Everybody has just different factors going on in their lives. And so, that's why I always just personalize it to each person. If it doesn't fit your lifestyle, if it doesn't fit you, then you're not going to do it. And then what good is that? Or you're going to struggle and then not feel good about it. And that's no good for anyone either. Like, the idea here is to aim for success and collaborate. I have a very collaborative style in collaborating to help you figure out what's going to make you successful.
Cool. So I'll make sure I put links to how to reach out to Becky. And don't forget to mention Active Travel Adventures, and she'll give you a 10% discount. So make sure you let her know that you heard about her from Active Travel Adventures. And is there anything else I should have asked you about all this, Becky, that I didn't?
I think we were going to talk about how I set up the plan so that, and this is part of the collaboration and flexibility. So I don't dictate to you like which days a week you should do specific things. Basically, I give you the overview recommendation of what kinds of activities you should be doing for how long and how many times a week. And then the other thing about this is it gives you ownership over how you fit that into your life. We can strategize about it. We can talk about it, talk through it, and figure it out together. Or you can take it and just figure it out on your own. I find that by giving people more of flexibility with that they have more ownership in the plan and are more likely to do it than if I just say, well, you have to do this on this day and this on that day and this on that day. Then, something comes up, you're like, oops, well, I, had to take the dog to the vet. So I just wasn't able to do that. And it kind of gets thrown out the window. When you are figuring it out for yourself, then it feels more flexible to be able to move things around or pair things up or however you need to do it to make it work for you. So I think that's kind of a little different than maybe some trainers work as well, where it's just like everything's very kind of mapped out in a lot of specificity. I mean, there's definitely specificity, and I have recommendations in terms of, don't do 2 strength training sessions like on back-to-back days, but those are just general training principles, or don't do 2 long rides, again, in back-to-back days until you've kind of built up your stamina for it. But otherwise, flexibility is key, and giving people the opportunity to figure out what works for them is really empowering.
I really appreciate you coming on the show, Becky, and I appreciate you help make sure as best as you can getting my body in shape for what I hope to be a really, really incredible fall adventure.
I'm sure it will be, Kit. It'll be awesome. Can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah, thanks again. Hopefully we're going to be able to connect in Croatia.
I know. I hope so too. That'll be so fun.
That will be great. Thanks again, Becky.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
I hope you've enjoyed listening in as I pick Becky's brains, and I will be sure to put links to everything we talked about in the show notes, so just scroll down on your phone, or you can go to the website, activetraveladventures.com, and find all the details there. There are still a few spots left for the Costa Rica Camino that we talked about for April of 2022. Reach out to me by email, kit@activetraveladventures.com. I'll send you the information. It's going to be the hardest, funnest trip you've probably ever gone on. Until next time, this is Kit Parks. Adventure on!